With the dissolution of the war cabinet, Prime Minister Netanyahu is expected to hold consultations about the ongoing Gaza war with a small group of ministers, including Defence Minister Yoav Gallant and Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, who had previously been members of the war cabinet. The move was announced as U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein visited Jerusalem as part of international diplomatic efforts to calm the situation on Israel's northern border with Lebanon, where the risks of a broader conflict with Hezbollah threaten to expand the war in Gaza across the region.
Any questions regarding Amos Hochstein, the proposals should be put to the White House. Amos Hochstein is, of course, President Biden's and the White House's envoy. Look, we want this to be resolved either diplomatically or militarily. The current state of affairs is not a sustainable reality. 5,000 rockets raining down on our north, making the north uninhabitable. This is not a sustainable reality.
Netanyahu had faced demands from extreme right-wing partners in his coalition government, including Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, to be included in the war cabinet. A move likely to have intensified strains with international partners, including the United States, that has described the policy positions of the duo, including advocating for the resettlement of Palestinians outside of Gaza, as inflammatory and irresponsible. The centrist Gantz, seen as a future challenger for Prime Minister in Israel, left the war cabinet over a failure to articulate a clear strategy over the war in Gaza, particularly its future governance and security arrangements.
Gantz was a moderate voice in the cabinet, the interwar cabinet that Netanyahu was leading, and with him gone, it sort of tugs all the decisions to the right and to the more extreme. The second problem is that Netanyahu, with the success of the hostage rescue, is more likely to dig in and to say, it's better to shoot now and negotiate later. Let's follow my lead rather than Gantz's. The third problem is, look, there's very little trust between government officials from the United States and Netanyahu. And as Secretary of State Kissinger said many years ago, trust is the currency of diplomacy.
These developments coming as efforts to reach a ceasefire for hostage deal, which had already been endorsed by the UN Security Council, appeared to be faltering, with both Israel and Hamas blaming the other for its lack of progress. Hamas is reportedly seeking a timeline for a permanent ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. But the current deal on the table calls for an immediate 6-week ceasefire in Phase 1, while negotiations on its permanence would be contingent on the future agreement of the parties during the implementation of Phase 1 and is not guaranteed. Mediator Qatar has indicated that it continues to work on bridging the gaps.
This is an issue that we've been struggling with for a very long time, is how to ensure that we bridge the gap between those two fundamental differences between what Hamas wants as a permanent ceasefire and what Israel wants as a hostage release and maybe a plan to continue the war. I think what we have achieved in this structure is the best way to bridge those gaps and to merge both tracks.
A view echoed by the United States.
In the days ahead, we are going to continue to push on an urgent basis with our partners, with Qatar, with Egypt, to try to close this deal, because we know it's in the interests of Israelis, Palestinians, the region, indeed, the entire world. And we all agree that the deal has to be grounded in the principles of the ceasefire proposal that the entire international community supports.
And while efforts on finding a pathway to peace in Gaza continue, a new front threatens to open across Israel's border with Lebanon, as UN officials warn that there was a very real threat of miscalculation that could lead to a wider conflict in the Middle East. Sherwin Briceby's SABC News, New York.